You once stayed. In a room that made you smaller. In a relationship that broke you slowly. And you called it love. You called it loyalty. But what if it wasn't either? Stop for a second. Don't just scroll past this like every other video. Because what I'm about to say is something you were never meant to hear. It will disturb you. It might even offend you. But if you stay, it might just set you free. You were taught to be loyal. To your partner. To your friends. To your family. To your boss. To your country. You were told that loyalty is a virtue. That it defines your character. That it makes you good. But no one taught you the cost of blind loyalty. No one told you that in the real world, loyalty isn't noble. It's dangerous. It's a weapon, not against others, but against you. You hold on to people who've already let go of you. You stay where your soul is starving because leaving would make you feel disloyal. But here's what no one tells you. Loyalty isn't love. It isn't strength. It isn't virtue. It's often fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of judgment. Fear of no longer being needed. You're keeping a promise. But the other person, they're running numbers. They're asking, does it still benefit me to stay? And if the answer is no, they leave. You bleed. They move on. And that's not betrayal. That's the system. This isn't a gentle video. This isn't a safe conversation. This is Machiavellian truth. And if you can handle it, by the end of this video, you will never see loyalty the same way again. From the moment you were a child, they told you stories. Stories about soldiers who never gave up, friends who never left, lovers who stayed through everything. And they weren't just stories. They were rules. They were warnings. Be loyal. Be good. Don't leave. And so you learned. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You stayed silent when you should have walked away. You gave more than you had. Not because you were weak, but because you thought staying made you worthy, because no one told you the truth. That loyalty was never about you. It was about keeping you in place. It was about making you easier to manage, more predictable, more useful. You weren't taught loyalty to protect love. You were taught it to protect the system. A system that profits when you keep giving, keep obeying, keep performing, even when your soul is exhausted. And you felt it. That moment you stayed in a room where no one would have stayed for you. That relationship where love had left but duty kept you there. That job you hated but couldn't leave because you don't quit on people. Loyalty didn't save you. It silenced you. And here's what no one wants to say. Loyalty is not love. It's not strength. It's not moral. It's often fear. Fear of change. Fear of being alone. Fear of becoming the bad one. Because the world punishes those who leave. Not because they did wrong, but because they broke the illusion. They stopped playing the role. And what's even worse, we perform it too. We act loyal to people we secretly resent. We smile through betrayal. We stay not out of love, but out of habit. Because we don't want to be called disloyal. We don't want to be the one who walks away. So we perform, like actors on a stage, like prisoners in golden chains. And the longer you stay in that play, the more you lose yourself. You confuse tolerance with strength, endurance with virtue. But Machiavelli saw it clearly. He lived in courts, filled with promises, filled with men who swore loyalty with one hand and wrote betrayal with the other. And yet, they were praised because they knew the game. They understood this. Loyalty is rarely real. It's performed because it looks good, because it buys trust, because it makes you feel like you belong. But belonging built on silence isn't belonging. It's bondage. And the moment you stop performing, they call you ungrateful, selfish, disloyal. Not because you hurt them, but because you stopped obeying. So ask yourself, who taught you loyalty? And what did they gain from you believing it was noble? What did they want you to ignore? What did they need you to endure? And are you still living by rules written by people who never lived your pain? You don't owe loyalty to people who exploit your silence. You don't owe loyalty to systems that profit from your sacrifice. You owe it to yourself to see clearly, to step off the stage, to take off the mask, to walk away from the script that was never yours. Because real loyalty, if it exists, must be chosen, not programmed, and it must serve both sides, not just the one with the power. And if what you just heard made you pause, if it made you look differently at your relationships, your commitments, the roles you've been performing your entire life, then hit like, share this video, and subscribe to the channel so truths like this don't disappear into silence. And if you want to support this team to keep creating videos like this every single day, you can do so through the Super Thanks button below. It doesn't take much, just someone who listens, and someone brave enough not to look away. Loyalty looks beautiful from a distance, but so does a theater. You see the lights, the costumes, the well-rehearsed smiles. Everything feels warm, familiar, noble. But backstage, there are cue cards, exit strategies, contract clauses written in silence, and roles assigned long before you even knew who you were. What you call loyalty might just be fear, dressed in a tuxedo. Because here's the truth, no one wants to admit. We don't cling to loyalty because it works. We cling to it because it feels safe. Safe from abandonment. Safe from being the villain. Safe from the terrifying unknown of starting over. You tell yourself, if I stay loyal, I'll be protected. If I endure, they'll see my worth. If I don't quit, something good will come. But what if that's the lie? What if loyalty isn't a promise, but a prison? You were trained for this performance. Since childhood, you were rewarded for staying quiet, for putting others first, for not asking why it hurts. And somewhere along the way, you began calling captivity commitment. You became the good soldier, the loyal friend, the silent partner. You smiled when it stung. You clapped for those who ignored you. You said, I understand, when your soul screamed otherwise. And here's the twist. No one hears you say out loud. You wrote long apologies for things you didn't do. You waited hours for replies that never came. You pretended the silence didn't break you. You stayed because leaving meant breaking character. And the fear of being the bad one felt worse than staying broken. But loyalty was never about you. It was about keeping you predictable, contained, harmless. Because a loyal person is easy to manage. They don't walk away. They don't cause chaos. They play their role even when the role eats them alive. And the more it hurts, the more you convince yourself you're being noble. But Machiavelli would look at you and say, that's not nobility. That's submission. That's the sedative of illusion. You perform loyalty in a world that rewards appearances and punishes clarity. You stay in dead friendships because walking away feels rude. You stay in one-sided relationships because you fear being alone. You stay in a system that drains you because you've confused endurance with virtue. But here's what no one dares to tell you. Loyalty isn't love. Loyalty isn't strength. Loyalty isn't moral. It's often fear. Fear of losing identity. Fear of being unloved. Fear of stepping into the unknown. And the people around you, many don't love you. They love the version of you that stays obedient. That doesn't question. That keeps playing their supporting character. But what happens when you stop playing the role? They call you ungrateful, selfish, disloyal. Not because you harmed them, but because you broke the script. And breaking the script is the first act of freedom. So, ask yourself, who benefits from your commitment to pain? Who gains from your silence? What version of you do they need to keep alive so they can stay comfortable? Because loyalty, when built on fear, is not virtue. It's sedation. And the longer you sedate yourself to stay loyal, the more you lose the voice that was meant to lead you out. Machiavelli didn't worship loyalty. He studied it, dissected it, exposed it. He knew, when people claim loyalty as virtue, they're often trying to keep you tame. Because real loyalty, if it even exists, doesn't need a stage, doesn't need applause, and it certainly doesn't require self-betrayal. It must be chosen, clearly, consciously, not from fear, but from alignment. And if the loyalty you give requires you to shrink, submit, and disappear, then it's not loyalty. It's a slow form of death. So take off the mask, step off the stage, and start asking the only question that matters. Is this truly loyalty, or just fear pretending to be love? Loyalty is not a virtue. It's an equation. It looks noble. It sounds sacred. But underneath its math, cold, efficient, silent. What do I gain by staying? What do I risk by leaving? That's the true question. And once the numbers shift, so does the loyalty. You've seen it. The employee who loved the company until a better title came with a better paycheck. The friend who would do anything for you until your crisis became too inconvenient. The partner who swore forever until someone else offered validation without the baggage. We call it betrayal. Machiavelli would call it predictable. Because loyalty doesn't break. It recalculates. When the risk of staying outweighs the reward, the decision is made, not emotionally, logically. And here's the part no one wants to admit. You do it too. You've left situations when they no longer served you. You've changed teams, changed sides, walked away from people not out of cruelty, but out of strategy. That's not evil. It's survival. It's the same algorithm running underneath every relationship, even the ones built on love. Because love, fadis, pressura rises, temptation grows, and loyalty. Loyalty checks the numbers. This is why Machiavelli didn't put his faith in promises. He put it in incentives. He watched kingdoms fall. Not because of evil men, but because the math changed. Supporters flipped allegiance when a new regime offered more. Advisors turned enemies when their own power was threatened. They didn't betray. They adapted. So why does this matter? Because if you don't understand the algorithm, you'll always be shocked when people do what's natural. You'll call it a moral failure. But it was never about morality. It was about momentum. People are loyal when it costs them less to stay than to leave. But when staying becomes painful, embarrassing, unprofitable, they go, and you're left wondering what changed. But it was never about you. It was about the numbers. That's the danger of blind loyalty. It blinds you to signals. It keeps you giving when the other side already checked out. So what's the solution? You stop begging for loyalty. You start building conditions for it. You stop confusing emotion with equity. You start noticing leverage. Ask yourself, why are they still here? What do they gain? What would make them leave? Those questions aren't cynical. They're protective. Because people don't need a dramatic reason to betray you. They just need a slightly better option. And in a world of infinite options, loyalty is fragile. But it doesn't have to be. Machiavelli showed us that what appears as betrayal is often a rational adjustment. And if you want to survive it, you must become just as rational. Anticipate the shift. Don't deny it. Don't beg. Don't chase. Pivot. Because loyalty isn't permanent. It's provisional. It's an ongoing contract, renegotiated by circumstances. So stop treating it like a vow. Treat it like what it really is. A living deal governed by risk and reward. Because once the numbers flip, so does everyone else. Love sounds powerful. It's the anthem of loyalty. The story we all want to believe. They stayed because they cared. They sacrificed because they loved you. They never left because real love doesn't walk away. That's what we tell ourselves. But Machiavelli saw through it. He stripped away the poetry and exposed the pattern. Because love fades, memories fade, but fear remains. And in a world built on shifting interests, fear is more reliable than love. He wrote, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, it is far safer to be feared than loved. Not because fear means terror, but because fear means consequence. Love is a feeling. It ebbs and flows. It depends on mood, context, timing, but consequence, that sticks. It whispers, if I cross this line, I will lose something valuable. And that's what holds people in place when love no longer does. You see it everywhere. The contract that prevents betrayal, the prenup that creates pause, the NDA that buys silence. People don't stay because they love you. They stay because they calculate the cost of leaving. And if leaving feels cheap, they will. This is not manipulation. It's mechanics. Even the most personal relationships obey this law. The friend who never shows up for you but expects loyalty in return. They don't fear the loss. That's why they neglect you. The partner who keeps breaking promises and still feels safe doing it. They don't fear the consequence. That's why they repeat. So ask yourself, what does it cost to hurt you? What does it cost to abandon you? To lie to you? To use your silence? If the answer is nothing, then nothing will stop them. Machiavelli didn't advocate cruelty. He advocated clarity. He understood that healthy relationships aren't held together by love alone. They are stabilized by structure. Love may draw people in, but fear defines the boundary. And boundaries protect what love cannot. This doesn't mean you become ruthless. It means you stop being naive. It means you design your life so that betrayal comes with weight. Not vengeance, but value. You become the kind of person whose absence would cost them more than your presence ever did. Because when loyalty is backed by consequence, it becomes strategic, durable, real. And here's the deeper truth. People respect boundaries far more than they respect feelings. They may love you, but still walk over you. They may miss you, but still betray you. But they won't violate you if it means losing something they're not willing to give up. That's not cold. That's calibrated. So stop asking, why did they leave if they loved me? Start asking, what did they lose by leaving? If the answer is not enough, you've already got your answer. And next time you won't need to ask, because you'll build relationships not on unconditional hope, but on mutual weight. That's the Machiavellian shift. Love is beautiful, but fragile. Fear is quieter, but lasting. And in a world where promises break, it's not who loves you that stays. It's who fears losing you. Loyalty feels real until it's tested. When everything's fine, everyone shows up. They say the right things. They post the right pictures. They act like they'll never leave. But when things fall apart, when you lose the job, when the scandal hits, when your light goes dim, they vanish. One by one, silently, effortlessly, like you never mattered. You think they changed? No. They were always calculating. They were loyal as long as it benefited them, as long as your presence elevated them. as long as loving you was easy. But crisis strips away the theater, burns down the illusion, and shows you who was real and who was just rehearsing. And it hits hardest when the silence comes from those you thought would never disappear. The one who said, "I'll be there no matter what," but couldn't even text when your world collapsed. The one who used your light but ran the moment you lost your shine. You don't just lose people, you lose the version of them you held on to. And that hurts more than betrayal, because it feels like your reality was a lie. But Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He didn't romanticize loyalty. He dissected it. He knew people are loyal in prosperity, but in hardship they pivot, not because they're evil, but because pain rewrites priorities. When standing by you becomes a liability, they recalculate. And that's what most people never see coming. They mistake comfort loyalty for character loyalty. But those are not the same. Comfort loyalty says, "I'm here because it's easy." Character loyalty says, "I'm here even when it costs me." The problem: comfort is cheap. Character is rare. So when your crisis hits, you don't lose people. You lose illusions. And that's not a tragedy. That's a gift. Because now you see the blueprint. Now you see which connections were tied to convenience and which ones were tied to truth. So stop grieving the loss of those who left easily. Start questioning why they were allowed so deep without ever proving their depth. Ask yourself, what did I confuse for loyalty? And why did I need it so badly that I ignored the signs? This isn't about bitterness. It's about blueprint. Because if you don't study the collapse, you'll rebuild on the same weak ground. And next time the storm won't be the problem. Your structure will be. So, restructure. Reclaim your gate. Don't give loyalty to those who haven't shown loyalty under fire. Test the bond. Pressure the foundation. See who stays when there's nothing left to gain. That's how you find real loyalty. Not in words, not in smiles, not in celebration, but in silence, in tension, in loss. Because anyone can hold your hand in the light, but only the real ones stand beside you in the dark. Machiavelli never said trust no one. He said trust what people do when pressure rewrites the rules. Because that's who they truly are, not who they claim to be. And the ones who leave, let them. Not with hate, with clarity, because now you finally see the terms, and you'll never sign that blind contract again. Loyalty is rarely equal. It flows in one direction upward. The more power someone has, the more loyalty they expect. The less they give, and this isn't a flaw, it's architecture. The CEO expects you to stay through layoffs, but feels no obligation to keep you when profits dip. The leader demands absolute loyalty, while switching allegiances behind closed doors. The partner with more options wants full devotion, while keeping exits mapped in silence. Machiavelli saw it in every court, in every kingdom. In every room where power sat at the head of the table, power demands loyalty, but rarely returns it. Because power protects itself, not you. It rewards silence. It calls obedience virtue, and labels questioning as betrayal. But here's the truth. This imbalance isn't personal. It's intentional. The system doesn't just need your work. It needs your obedience, your submission, your silence, because loyalty is how they manage you without ever having to answer to you. They expect you to stay loyal to their promises, even when they abandon every principle they once claimed to believe in. Why? Because you've been conditioned to obey, to endure, to perform. Be a good employee. Be a loyal friend. Be faithful no matter what. But ask yourself, what do you actually get for being loyal to someone who wouldn't bleed for you? What's the return? respect security reciprocation, or just access temporary proximity to power that will disappear the moment your usefulness fades. You become the soldier on someone else's battlefield, fighting a war you never started, for a general who already mapped the escape. And here's the brutal part. They will ask for more, not out of need, but out of habit, because they know you'll give it. You've always given it. You were trained to, but Machiavelli, he didn't call it injustice. He called it strategy. He didn't beg the powerful to be fair. He told us to stop being blind. So what do you do when the scales are this uneven? You stop offering unconditional loyalty to those who never mirror it. You stop mistaking hierarchy for moral worth. And you start negotiating from awareness, not hope. If you're the one with less power, don't offer loyalty like a gift. Offer it like a contract. One with terms. One with leverage. One that can be revoked. And if you're the one with power, then understand. The loyalty around you is not love. It's not respect. It's not sacred. It's rented. And the rent is due the moment your value declines. So ask, what happens when I'm no longer useful? What happens when I say no? When I stop agreeing? When I fall? Because the answers will burn. But they will free you. The most dangerous illusion is believing loyalty flows both ways when it only flows up. And the most powerful shift is to no longer need it to. So now you know. Loyalty, as you were taught, was never built to last. Not because people are evil, but because they're wired to adapt. They shift when the equation shifts. They stay as long as it serves them, and leave when it doesn't. So what now do you shut down? Trust no one. Cut every tie before it can cut you. No. You upgrade. Because the solution isn't to abandon loyalty, it's to stop romanticizing it. Machiavelli never said loyalty was useless. He said it was conditional, which means it can be built, but not on love, not on hope, not on blind devotion. It must be built on alignment, mutual interest, shared stakes, clear consequence. Look at the longest-lasting partnerships. In politics, in business, in marriage, they don't survive because of feelings. They survive because the incentives stay synchronized. You win when I win. You fall if I fall. We're tied not by sentiment, but by structure. That's strategic loyalty. And here's how it works. Step 1. Make loyalty valuable. Not emotionally. Tactically. If people gain nothing by staying loyal, they won't. So give them something real. Access, status, security, protection. Make your presence a privilege, not a default. Step 2. Make betrayal expensive. Don't threaten. Design. Build contracts that carry weight. Set expectations that are enforceable. Make them think twice. Because when people know that walking away comes with cost, they hesitate. And in that hesitation, you regain control. Step 3. Keep the deal alive. Loyalty is not a one-time pledge. It's a living negotiation. You must renew it through relevance, clarity, and contribution. If you stop feeding the foundation, don't be surprised when it cracks. Strategic loyalty is not passive. It's engineered. You don't hope for it. You build it. In your company, in your friendships, in your relationships, you move from dependence to design. Because what is designed can scale, can adapt, can last. But what is emotional and vague, it collapses the moment life demands too much. That's why so many connections fail. They weren't flawed. They were undefined. So define yours. Set terms. Set timelines. Set truth. Because loyalty without clarity is just theater. And you're not here to perform. You're here to build alliances that hold under pressure. that don't flinch when things get hard, that bend but don't break, because they weren't based on how you feel, but on what you've both built. This is how Machiavellian loyalty works. It's not cold, it's conscious. It's not manipulative, it's mutual. And it doesn't require begging because it's based on value. So ask yourself, who in your life is loyal out of alignment and who's loyal out of inertia? Who is still with you because the structure works? And who is there because they haven't found a better option yet? These are not cynical questions. They're strategic clarity. And the more you ask them, the less you bleed for people who were never truly tied to you. Loyalty will never be perfect, but it can be real. If you stop seeking guarantees and start building systems. Most people fear betrayal, not because it hurts, but because they didn't see it coming. They trusted blindly. They assumed permanence. They believed loyalty was a fixed currency in a world of shifting markets. But betrayal, Machiavelli would tell you, isn't shocking. It's predictable. It happens when the conditions that held someone no longer exist. The issue isn't that people betray you. The issue is that you misunderstood the structure. Because loyalty and power are bound together. If you ignore power dynamics, you will always misread loyalty. The powerless are told to be loyal. The powerful are taught to be flexible. That imbalance is not emotional. It's strategic. Machiavelli didn't write to make you cynical. He wrote to make you conscious, to show you what moves beneath the surface, to give you the blueprint behind behavior. And when you finally see it, you stop taking betrayal personally. You start seeing it structurally. You stop grieving disloyalty as if it came out of nowhere. You start noticing the signs, the hesitation, the silence, the slow withdrawal of presence, because betrayal never arrives overnight. It accumulates, and if you're paying attention, you'll feel it before it strikes. That's what Machiavellian clarity offers you. Not paranoia. Power. You stop begging for loyalty. You start engineering it. You stop fearing who might leave. You start noticing why they would. You stop feeling crushed by shifts. You start anticipating them. This clarity does something rare. It makes you unmanipulable. You no longer mistake kindness for commitment. You no longer interpret presence as permanence. You no longer bleed for people just because they stood beside you once. Because now, you read the contract beneath the connection. You look for alignment, not attachment. You assess what they gain from being loyal and what they lose if they leave. And more importantly, you ask that of yourself. 2. Are you loyal because it's still real, or because you're afraid of starting over? This is the power of conscious loyalty. It liberates you, not from people but from your own delusions. You stop trying to make temporary things last forever. You stop resuscitating bonds that only worked under old conditions. You start building relationships like a strategist, not a sentimentalist. Because the person who understands how loyalty works can shape it, but the one who doesn't, they become its victim. So here's the final shift. Stop being surprised by betrayal. Start being skilled with it. Know what signals to watch. Know when to renegotiate. Know when to walk without apology. Machiavelli never taught cruelty. He taught leverage. He didn't say trust no one. He said trust those who benefit from staying, and be ready when they don't. That's not pessimism. That's sovereignty. And the people who understand this, they don't need loyalty to last forever. They only need it to be honest while it lasts. So where does that leave us? If loyalty is not fixed, if it shifts, if it's calculated, conditioned, constantly renegotiated, then what do we do with it? We stop worshipping it. We stop fearing its absence. We stop begging for its return. Because loyalty doesn't die. It simply evolves. And it evolves with those willing to see clearly, not through fantasy, but through function, not through emotion, but through design. You don't stop being loyal. You stop being loyal to the wrong things. You stop giving your loyalty to people who benefit from your blindness, to roles that drain you, to systems that collapse the moment you question them, and you start choosing loyalty like a strategist, with awareness, with boundaries, with leverage. You stop needing someone to swear they'll never leave. You start asking, what makes staying worthwhile? What makes walking away costly? Because that's not manipulation. That's wisdom. And wisdom doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. You don't love less. You love smarter. You don't trust less. You trust deeper because now you know what to look for. You ask better questions. You listen for silence. You notice how people move when no one's watching. And when someone leaves, you don't collapse. Because you were never clinging. You were choosing. That's the difference. That's the shift. So the next time someone says, I'll be loyal to the end, don't listen for their promises. Look for their patterns. Look at the cost of their departure. Look at the design of your bond. Because in the end, it's not the loyal who win. It's those who understand how loyalty works. And when you understand it, you don't need it to last forever. You only need it to be real. While it lasts. Fade to black. Silence. Then one final whisper. Loyalty isn't what binds you to others. It's what frees you from needing them to stay.